any initial step that is taken towards climate action is like you said, Kyla, it's we cannot dismiss that, even if it's not like a big step or a big change. It is still an important thing to do.
I think with Unravel Carbons, like the challenges that I could face is just solely on the timeline, right? So in 6 years, they have to reduce to net zero emissions, if I'm correct. And it just, from my perspective on it, it just doesn't seem feasible.
So hi everyone, welcome to our podcast for our 478 project. I'm Charbel. I'm
And
here
I'm
with
Srijan.
And I'm Kyla.
Yeah, and I'm Daniel.
So I will let Kyla now introduce the project a bit.
All right. So we are a group that's in, like Shabo mentioned, doing climate change, science, impact, and policy. And our group have that overall topic of this project is climate hope. And our group's climate hope is actually climate transparency. And linking to that, we are focusing on a company called Unravel Carbon, which is a startup started in 2022. And what they do is that they access and reduce their their customers' carbon emissions via their AI decarbonization platform. And after assessing it, they kind of have like a sort of a consulting or consultancy kind of service for their customers where they suggest climate solutions so that their customers can move towards net zero emissions. Yeah. They actually have a website where it has all the different information about the company, what they do, who they have helped, and they even have a demo where you can try out their AI decarbonization tool, which is really cool. Yeah. Over here you can see, or if you're interested, you can actually go in to toggle and play around as well. Yeah.
So as a tool, like many companies are currently recognizing the importance of sustainability, and they are taking steps regarding to reduce their carbon footprint. Because like in every nation, government are they know their goal of 1.5 degrees centigrade temperature, surface temperature above pre-industrial level, to reduce it by 2100, I believe. So like regarding that, Unravel Carbon is basically working. They are just helping different companies. This company is basically based on Singapore, so their work is mostly in Singapore based. But other than that, they also have they are partnering and they have customers from all the world as well, and mostly from Asia. And like the person who has just started this company is named Grace Sai. So she is basically she has an experience of working like 15 years and a career build up. I mean in the startup, like making startups and kind of thing. And the co-founder of this is Mark Allen, and he has experience of working with different companies, different governments as well, and they're doing some different climate strategies and decarbonizations as well. So basically, Unravel Carbon has right now there are like six or seven, like 6 to 7 investors. Though those have invested kind of in Unravel Carbon, and so Unravel Carbon is doing basically to reduce to help in helping they're just a AI powered tool. I mean AI powered platform, and so basically they help different companies to measure to reduce their carbon emission, and also to estimate or calculate the carbon footprints of different customers that those company have. And so what it does, they have a partner with they are partnering like with Snowflake. Snowflake is a company which is basically a data platform where the Unravel Carbon basically can sort their data in a way that it looks like it is more structured, most reliable to the companies. So there are a lot of, I mean, if you just go to the websites that we showed you guys, you can just go there and have a look that there are a lot of successful customers review from for the Unravel Carbon. So one of them you can see that that is mentioned called Global Fashion Group. So basically, what the Global Fashion Group is a company which is mostly based looking forward to online fashion and lifestyle. And Unravel Carbon basically helped that company in calculating their carbon emission and also provide them different emission reduction solutions as well. And this company is basically registered in Luxembourg. I mean, the Global Fashion Group, but they have headquarters in Singapore as well. And other than that, there is also one more company that is mostly popular, I mean, in Singapore as well, and that's called Salad Stop. And that's a company that you can just, and that company shared that they have an overall goal of net zero to just reach net zero goal by 2030. And Unravel Carbon is kind of just helping Solid Stop to achieve their goal by doing carbon assessment of their sourcing, of their supply chain, and yeah, like and they also shared some of their data overall that they have Solid Stop with the help of Unravel Carbon has reduced 126 tons of CO2 per year, where similar kind of companies, like similar kind of restaurants in Singapore, I mean, they emit like 555 tons of carbon dioxide per year. So Salad Stop has improved a lot with the help of Unravel Carbon. So I was just thinking, like, what could be the possible challenges that Unravel Carbon can face overall? I mean, if you guys want to share something.
I mean, I guess I can start off. So I think with Unravel Carbons, like the challenges that it could face is just solely on the timeline, right? So in 6 years, they have to reduce to net zero emissions, if I'm correct. And it just, from my perspective on it, it just doesn't seem feasible. Like with ongoing changes, with, the price of everything just skyrocketing. Um, it's just crazy to think that, 6 years, yes, we could say it's far off, but at the end of the day, that comes really quick. And are we going to be able to adapt to those changes like very rapidly without, governments implementing more, we could say like more incentives and all that? But just from my perspective on the case, I just don't think it's feasible because the other alternatives that we have are just much cheaper. And I would say maybe 2050 could be more of a realistic goal. But I think at the end of the day, I think aiming for 2030 is great, but just like I said, I just don't think it's feasible.
Do you guys have any other thoughts, like Charbel and Kyla? Do you want to add something to it?
I have something, but it's more towards what Daniel has said regarding the feasibility and how 2030 is the target year. Personally, I feel that we shouldn't delay it any longer. Just as we have one of the points brought up in class on how COVID wasn't expected as well. It was a drastic change to all of our lives, but we adapt because we had to. And in the same case for climate change, even though it's not as like quick impact as COVID, but I feel like we should treat it as it is so that we have to quickly we're forced to adapt accordingly. And it's not just Unravel Carbon that is the only like company doing for all other companies towards net zero. So I'm more hopeful in that sense that it could be possible. I don't think we should dismiss the fact that it's not possible to do it by 2030. Yeah, that's just my thoughts. But regarding Unravel Carbon, other challenges, I think one of it could be that it's more of a general challenge for carbon accounting as well, as to how they can accurately access and accurately track each customer's emissions. So there are actually three types of scopes, or three scope levels to emissions: scope 1, 2, and 3. And what Unravel Carbon is focusing is usually the scope 3 emissions, which is more of all the other emissions, not the direct one, which falls under 1, not the indirect kinds where I'm not too sure. Maybe you could
Yeah,
chip in on
but
the
basically,
indirect
like the
part.
scope 3 emission is really complicated. So for that one, I mean, Unravel Carbon is basically focusing on that. And as Grace, I mean, the founder of this company, Carbon company, Grace Tsai, she has mentioned that this is really like difficult to just focus on a scope 3, since it's not like a normal emission. This is kind of they have to just go through all the um, probably they have to implement different technologies and sustainable practices as well for different companies, because that data that is not always available, and also not accurate as well. Because when I was going through one of their customers called, as I mentioned before, that the Salad Stop, so they were just saying something like that. Salad Stop used to get kind of they used to import cheese from Germany for their meal. And when they asked the company that used to import cheese, when they asked the company about the carbon emission, they does usually, and that company didn't actually I mean, didn't give any kind of data about their carbon emission as well. So like about the accuracy and the reliability of the data is, I mean, it's not that good, I would say. So that's one of the challenge, I believe.
I guess we can like now go to the topic of climate hope, or like how we can retain hope, or how can Unravel Carbon retain hope. And my initial thought on this is that any initial step that is taken towards climate action is like you said, Kyla, we cannot dismiss that, even if it's not like a big step or a big change. It is still an important thing to do. So yeah, Unravel Carbon. Sorry, Unravel Carbon's carbon accounting is, in my opinion, like a step towards like climate action, even if we're not gonna reach net zero carbon emissions by 2030, but maybe by 2050. I guess this is what I'm hopeful for.
Yeah, I'll just dive in on the 2050 because I know in Canada, like that's one of our goals, right? Is to be net zero emissions by 2050, which is great. And they have been putting strides to make it better, with incentives on EV vehicles, trying to get rid of, the oil and gas ones that we currently use. Um, but for for a first developed like country like ours, like we need to be a leader in this, right? And I feel like looking this up and this topic has been so interesting because we see how like the United States are still one of the biggest CO2 emitters in the entire world, and for them to be as developed as they are and still not have carbon capture methods and not incentivizing companies to use more renewable resources, just to me is crazy. And we need to be a leader in this and then show the world that it's like, hey, like we can hit these goals, we can find different ways of renewable energy to continue our lives that we're doing right now, and just investing more in these types of projects and so forth.
Right. I think in terms of gaining or retaining climate hope, we just have to remember that we are just doing a dance, in a sense that we need to put in the effort or show that we are willing to take up like sustainable actions or lifestyles. Like I know there's a big discussion on how our diet choices affect how the entire economy works. So that's really one way how we can make change as individuals directly. It's not like you can see the results quickly, but I think incrementally as everyone chooses and decides to change, it gives a signal to the government, and then they will have to make changes on their side, and then that will help us to back in a way to make it easier for big changes to occur. So it's kind of like a back and forth kind of dance. That's why I used it. Yeah. So I feel like being positive, it's one way to continue having hope as well, as in it's easier said than done, but sometimes really you just need to start the positive thoughts first and then translate it to action, and then it will translate it to action, and then it's really just a cycle again. So that's my take on it.
Like every governments are kind of, as I mentioned before, like every governments are kind of aware of the situation about the carbon emission and everything. That's because like almost all the countries, like 195 countries so far, as you know, like they're involved in the Paris Agreement, as you know from our course and overall. And because of that treaty agreement from different nations on climate change, like everyone has to be a part of this, like all the governments of the nations, and there should be and I believe there are some rules and regulations in every country regarding this emission target and carbon emission kind of thing. So like every company are really taking steps toward that. And so yeah, so I believe that's I mean carbon hope and the carbon, I mean emission goals are really important regarding to reach that 1.5 degrees Celsius, the temperature target by 2100.
I guess one last piece of hope for me is that Unravel Carbon gets to expand more globally, because as we said, it's more so focused on the Asian part of the world. So it would be nice to see them partner up with other international companies and spread the word of carbon accounting, I guess.
So I got a question like for you guys in general, like what do you guys think could be the possible way to like let everyone know about this climate literacy or climate change, like the climate about their carbon footprint or the importance of carbon footprint, and how you guys think that you guys can let everyone know about this, or I mean educate people in a way. Do you guys have any thoughts about this?
I could say first.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
And
Go
you
ahead.
could add on. Actually, good use of educate. I think education is a big part. So, one direct way that I think would be rather effective is to make it a core module, like how our classmates in 478 share similar sentiments on how maybe the course that we're taking right now should be a core module for all students, all university students, so that they are, in a sense, it's like mandatory for them to be exposed to such topics, and they will put in the effort because it's like it matters to them. So I think that's one way on how people can increase or improve their climate literacy, because they are given they are kind of like forced to face it. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you, because I think all kind of changes should be from the root level, like in the local level, and but we should start something at a local level as well. Like local governments should take steps probably, and encourage people to be a part of this, because ultimately we have to do it. We're doing it for the entire world, not just and which is related to us, our lives, and probably our future generation as well. So this is really important. Ultimately, we just have uh, to start it some way to educate people about this and about the climate goals and everything.
Just to continue the topic, like I feel even people in our government still don't believe that climate change is a thing, and I feel like people even who make our policies like need to realize before it's too late that hey, we need to act now before everything just rapidly changes and then we can't adapt to it, or it becomes extremely hard to. And I guess one thing to also get the word out too is social media. Like that's probably the biggest thing that we use in our generation, and providing proper facts is key to people realizing that's like, oh, we're actually in a crisis. We need to act now. We need to start our changing our ways. We need to invest in better, renewable resources, better incentives for companies to actually want to change. Because if we continue down this path, I think we'll still be screwed.
Well, speaking of social media, I think Unravel Carbon recently posted on their LinkedIn about their recent partnership. So yeah, just to like give an example on that. So yeah. Any other questions before we wrap things up? No? Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for listening to our first and final podcast. Well, yeah. Have a good day.
Take care.
Bye-bye.